Hello and welcome to this episode of On the Neutral Ground. Thanks for tuning in.
And check us out on all social media platforms at On the NG Show, as well as YouTube and Apple Podcast. I'm Jason Waggenspack.
And I'm Victoria Green. We have a very special episode today of On the Neutral Ground. We chat about the film, The True Don Quixote, with writer-director Chris Poche and producers Beth Burvant and Jason Waggenspack, who's also the co-host of this show.
Thank you, Victoria. Enjoy the show, guys.
This is going to be a very fun show because we are talking about The True Don Quixote with the team here in the studio. Of course, you know Jason and you know Beth Burvant, or you will after this show, as well as Chris Poche. So you are in for a treat. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
I'm so glad. And Jason, is it lovely for you to be here too?
Absolutely. Excited to have the team getting the band back together.
Well, The True Don Quixote is having a sneak preview in New York in a few weeks, and it premiered in New Orleans last year during the New Orleans Film Festival. But before we get into all of the things that are going to happen going forward, let's talk about where it began. And Chris, you're the writer and director. So tell us and tell our audience why this show, why this project, and what drew you to the story.
Someone told me, a producer told me the story about Cervantes writing the book. I didn't know anything about Don Quixote. I'd heard about it. Everybody's heard about it. Mm-hmm. It's very well known without actually being very well read. And the story of the making of the book was so outrageous that I decided to read it. And then the book itself was so outrageous, and no one had ever made a movie of it. And I knew, and you know all about Terry Gilliam's struggles, and you know that it had never been made a feature film. And I knew immediately that it could be, and that because it's ultimately a little bitty story, like it's famous, but it's not a big epic tale. Mm-hmm. The guy, even in the book, never gets out of his neighborhood. He's got this cruddy horse, and it's like a buddy comedy, and it made me laugh out loud the whole time. And then I just went insane myself and thought, well, it's only a 900-page book. I can get that down to about 90 pages.
And how long did that take?
4 years. I mean, I was doing other things, but I kept coming back to it. It was a very grueling little process to try to figure out, because you have to cut out almost everything. In fact, I saw a version of it a couple of years ago here. Excuse me. It was terrific, but they used all the parts I threw out and vice versa.
Really?
Yeah, they told the whole story with entirely other, because it's very episodic. Mm-hmm. So they just chose other episodes. So, yeah, after 4 years, I got it written, and I did what I always do when I have a completely ludicrous, impossible, ill-advised plan. I called TRUE Burvant.
Which Trey Burvant, of course, is one of the producers, as well as Beth, and Jason is a producer. How did you guys decide to go forward with this project?
We just decided to go forward with it. Trey and I decided that if we just decided it was inevitable, that it was going to happen. And we were at a point where it's like, I don't care if it's me with an iPhone and you on a bicycle. We're making it. And you kind of have to, when you're doing something that ludicrous. If you will allow it to be stopped for anything, it won't happen, because there's a million things that are going to make it a good idea to stop. And you just have to take those off the table right in the beginning. So that when those things happen, and they do, you just stupidly keep going forward anyway.
One of my favorite stories of the lore of how it all came together was actually on our first day of principal photography. And Chris's wife, Georgia, came to set, and she saw the size of set and all of the resources, and it was a real thing. And she's like, I knew they were going to do it and they would get it done, but I literally thought it was going to be the two of them running through a sugarcane field, filming each other. And this is really significant. And that's how we embarked upon this madness.
Oh, man.
So how did you get involved, Jason?
I got a call from one Trey Burvant, and he says, I got a crazy story that I think is definitely going to be a great movie. And I said, well, great. I like those types of projects. Can I read it? So he sent it to me, and I fell in love with the script. And then he says, I think we want to shoot it down in St. Bernard Parish, where I think you know a couple people. And I said, all right, I'll be happy to help you out. He came down here and we did just a minor bit of location scouting. And then I kind of looked at him and said, I think I can raise a little money for this. I love this script. I was like, I think we could definitely do it. And so we brought on the Miro Foundation and they came aboard. And I think that's when the real adventure began for me and Trey, which was scrambling to find all the resources and assets we could put together to hoggle this into a feature film. And I don't know how long it took us. It only took us about 4 or 5 months to raise all the money. And he literally looked at me one day and he was like, I don't know if we're going to be able to make it. And I said, well, show me the budget. What is it we need? And so we looked at it and I was like, Trey, we're good. It's like, you're not counting the credits that we'll get from the state. I was like, we could go if you want to. Let's just make this, as crazy as Chris just pointed out. You were going to go do it no matter what. I basically just gave him that confidence that I think that we could have done it. And we did. We set out to make it.
Jason casually brings up that Trey just gives me a call and, I do know people in this area, but that was really a significant and pivotal moment for this film. What we ended up doing was having 2 base camp locations. And so the first 2 weeks we operated out of one and then the second 2 operating out of the other. And because of that well thought out locations plan and the resources available here, it allowed us to make the movie. We would never have been able to afford studio space or transporting and doing a lot of base camp moves. So we really thought through our resources, and that was a huge piece of it.
Yeah, we called in a lot of favors, obviously because we believed in the project, but it was fun. And everybody in this parish came on board.
Oh, God. I kept looking at Jason going, how did we get this? Because I come in just to direct it. They're protecting me from all of this stuff, right? I'm just doing my thing.
Everything.
And
That's the way it should be.
It was amazing. And I kept looking, I'm going, where did this come from? How did we get this? Because everything I needed materialized in the middle of the parish.
Well, we needed that crazy story that you had thought up for 5 years and put on paper to come to life. So we needed whatever crazy juice that you had going for you at that time to continue for at least how many days did we shoot? 22 days, 21 days? We needed that. And so I think we got what we needed out of it.
Pretty crazy juice. We all kind of turned into Don Quixote. We all kind of went mad.
Oh, very much so.
And just did whatever stupid thing seemed, we need a pump jack. Let's build one. Yeah, okay.
Who's going to do that? How are we going to do that?
Totally. That field looks perfect. Let's do it. Like, what? I mean, the resources to be able to build a pump jack are significant.
Yeah.
But we put it together.
Well, behind every successful project is a great team. And it's obvious that you guys have something going on here, a lot of synergy, a lot of chemistry. And we talk about relationships and networking all the time. So it's these relationships that, number one, got it made here in St. Bernard Parish, and the relationships between you guys where it prevented any fighting and right?
There wasn't?
No.
Well, if we're going to bring up fighting, let's go ahead and bring up just the mere fact of how was it working with your husband, Beth?
It was great. I will say it this way. We are really successful producers in life. We have 3 beautiful children and a 20-year marriage. We've been through our ups and downs. And on set, it was just a microcosm of a marriage. There were wonderful moments. There were challenging moments. What I loved, actually, was seeing people responding to us when we would have those marital moments on stage or on set. And Jason was like, oh, gosh, there they go again. Just step back, let him bicker it out, and it'll be fine. And it usually was.
Yeah.
I did have to kind of remind myself, it's just Trey and Beth being married. Not like, the producers are fighting. That's not what was happening, really.
No. This is how we have to communicate. My husband is a very intense guy. And early in our marriage, he said, you never yell at me. Why don't you yell at me? I'm like, I'm not a yeller that way. I see a problem, I break it down academically, or I think through things for the most part. And he goes, well, I just don't take you seriously unless you yell. And his family is more of a high-energy yelling family.
You're not suggesting by this that you're not an intense person.
I am
that you're
not
the mellow
suggesting
one,
in the
I'm
least.
here to tell you.
Hold the mirror up. No.
You two are like 2 glorious Siamese fighting fish who are in love.
And this was carried on to set how?
Almost none. I mean,
It
actually
made it
on
joyous,
set.
but it made it joyous and
It did.
fulfilling.
We all have the utmost respect for each other. And there was never any fighting between any of us. What was great is that, we all communicated very well. Well, some of us, other than the one that's not here today, communicated very well with each other. And I'm just joking in the fact that, Trey is not very good at replying all sometimes, so we all like to pick on him for that, but that's about it.
And sometimes I refer to him as ready, fire, aim.
That's right.
Which is also his strength.
Absolutely. And really probably why this
Hey, he's not
picture
here.
got
Let's
made.
talk about it.
Well, since you
Sorry,
mentioned
honey.
ready, fire, aim, sometimes we say, and I say it all the time, ignorance is bliss. If you knew what it was going to take to create this film before you did it, would you have proceeded?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would have because I'm crazy. Yeah.
And we kind of knew. I mean, this is one of the advantages of not being 24 when you make your first movie. It's like we knew people. I've been writing movies for 15 years. I've been on a ton of movie sets. Now, I've never directed so much as a student film or a commercial or a family vacation video. I mean, nothing. So that was challenging, but it wasn't. We knew the landscape pretty well. So we had a pretty good idea of what we were in for. And it was everything. One of the great things about having a team like this is that when we did meet some challenges, and a few of them were film ruining scale. Like they were things that really should have brought the whole production down. And they didn't. Yep. And that's why. It's because we were old and savvy and worked together well. And
I think, too, that we were taking and making a movie out of the second most published book in the history of mankind beyond the Bible. That's nuts. So taking that as the starting point, we knew we were just going to have our challenges. It was just going to be that way. And I think the one thing that we've not necessarily been prepared for is we wrote it, made it, edited it, and now it's time to sell it. Some of those things are not in our wheelhouse, and having to learn all of those components has been more challenging in my mind than actually making the movie.
Yeah, very true.
Because
100%.
we can raise money, we can make a movie. And for some people, they would look at those as the really big challenges. But again, when you're dealing with folks who are seasoned in their careers and their network and their resources, the raising the money is hard, but it's not as hard as when you're 25. And in making the movie, we have a lot of people we could ask if we don't know how to do something at this point in our lives. But on the distribution side, the way movies are seen changes so radically from day to day that you operate under one assumption and then give it 2 months and it's an entirely different industry. That's been, I think, the most challenging.
I don't think it's just us. I mean, it is. We went into that part with some real
No, I
ignorance,
don't
but
think it's just
the
you. I
industry
think
is-
it's a lot of us because of it changing. We have difficulty
the
with that
industry's
area.
in such turmoil right now. No one knows how it works. I mean, I know people who've been at this, producers, really successful producers who've been at this for 30 years who are absolutely flummoxed. They don't know what to make, what to sell, how to make it, how things get distributed. It's really wide open right now.
Yeah, we've been told, the market is shit, for the last year and a half. And honestly, you have all these multiple platforms to go off of, but the problem is that you're not making the amount of money that you were previously, so it's starting to flush out all of this content that's being made into how much you can actually make it for, how much you can sell it for, and then what is being bought on each of these platforms. So there's really no telling at this moment where this is going to end up. We have things like Quibi that's coming out that you're going to make little 6-minute sections of movies. Who knows where that's going to go? You have YouTube that's being, touted as being the next place we're going to start advertising shorts or even putting features on and making money off of. But I have no idea either. We're going down this road and we're looking at each other going, we're going through self-distribution. We're having a great time in the fact that we're together in this, but we don't have any answer of what's going to happen here in the next 3 weeks. And as much as it is scary, it's obviously invigorating, though, to find out, how is it that we're going to make this successful? Because I'd love to do another one. I'd love to continue doing this. And so we need to find out what those answers are. And it's the experience.
It is. And the great thing is that now anyone can make a movie. And the terrible thing is that now anyone can make a movie.
Right. And anybody.
Yeah,
can
the
make
film
a movie.
industry is becoming it's going through very much what the music industry went through, to where this is the early Spotify, the Napster moment of filmmaking, when, again, everyone can make it, but making a living at it becomes much more difficult. It used to kind of be you were in or out. If you could get stuff made and get it in front of people, you could make a career out of it. But it's not that way anymore. And the streaming services are largely responsible. They're making more content that people can watch. They're paying less.
Yep.
You read all the time about people who have featured roles on streaming shows and are still waiting tables because they got to divide that money up over so much content.
Exactly.
To produce.
Well, I want to talk about a fun story, and that is how Tim Blake Nelson came to be a part of this project.
Good, because it's funny. We've talked about our team like it's just the four of us, but everybody involved in this. This is the real gift that these guys gave me, is that everybody that showed up on that set was unbelievable.
Yes.
They were professional, they were talented, they were creative, they were nuts. People worked like sled dogs for this little movie, and people who didn't have to. And at the top of that heap is Tim, who is just the most generous, gifted guy you could possibly want. I mean, he's directed 5 movies, and he's been in 50. He's been directed by Steven Spielberg and Steven Soderbergh and Terrence Malick, and he showed up on this set and treated me like I was one of those guys. It was incredible. And he's just the smart, funny dude.
Entirely prepared every day.
Insanely prepared.
Insane, like the preparation that he went through. There's one moment he has to do this athletic headstand in the movie. And he trained with a yoga teacher for weeks to ensure that he could do the headstand. Amazing.
He grew a horrible beard that his wife hated way before we made the financed the film. And he kept telling his wife, because this became Trey and I's shorthand. Tim would call us, and he's like, I jumped ahead of your question. I'll get back to it in a second.
It's okay.
Tim would call us and say, hey, man, you guys, how's the money raising going, Poche? And Trey and I are totally bluffing. Like, you know what? We're making we've got a couple of people. We're like totally bluffing, which he's fully aware of. He's like, okay. And he'd hang up and I'd look at Trey and go, the beard's getting itchy. Because he wanted to have the beard after he read the script. I think he should have this big, ugly beard. It's like, I grow a gnarly beard. I'm like, great. I love it. So that was our code. Trey was like, I think the beard's getting itchy. Well, it turns out it was, and his wife hated it. And she kept telling him, would you shave that damn beard? And he would tell her, no, I think those boys are going to raise that money. And for months, this went on. So by the time we raised the money, the beard was just this
big and
colossal,
bushy and
nasty
gnarly.
thing. But he came aboard because we were stuck. And I, at the time, had an agent at this huge agency. And of course, they were completely useless on something like this. Could go on and on about how useful they might have been on even something else. But in this particularly, they were not helpful. And we didn't know how to do this. Like, okay, we got a script. That's all we have. We need an actor to raise the money. We need money to get an actor. You know, you're in that, how can I get credit when I don't have credit loop? Excuse me. And then I thought about, I don't know how this came up, but that we could just get a casting director. Casting directors are not hugely expensive. They're woefully underpaid, in fact. It's like, what if we just got a casting director to send the script out, which is what an agency does, and we'll just skip the agency. So Trey was making, this is so crazy, Trey was making a list of casting directors, and we thought we'd have to go to New York, probably get a Broadway actor that wanted an opportunity to do a film role, and it's a big, juicy role. Not a movie star role, but like we needed an actor, because the language is so crazy that if you just got a performer, you're going to get sick of it in about 5 minutes. So we needed a real actor. So he was putting together a list of casting directors in New York. Meanwhile, I'm at a party in a block and a half from my house. It's a Christmas party. And my friend Ames, who lives a block and a half away, and I are talking. He's asking me how it's going. He's also a writer. We're talking about the movie. I said, look, we're trying to get this done. And so we had this crazy idea to try to get a casting director involved first. He went, my sister's a casting director. Like, what? Like, yeah, she's in New York. She does had 4 films at Sundance last year. This is exactly what she does. So he gave me her name. And I called Trey the next day. I said, Stephanie Holbrook is a casting director. I know her brother. And he goes, she's number 2 on my list. He'd found her that way. I was like, oh, my God. So we called her.
And by the way, these things happen all the time on this project. Like these little inspirational moments that are like, what? What? Really?
Yeah.
And they just queued up.
Which, by the way, I hope will happen here in 2 weeks when we release the film. But just keep going with the story.
It will. It will.
Stephanie, I call Stephanie, she's lovely and she's great at her job. And she's like, oh, yeah, send me the script. So she read it and she started sending me Broadway actors.
And what day of the week was this? It's a Friday, right?
Oh, no, we're getting to that point of the story.
Okay.
When actually offers were going out. So keep going, Chris.
I think I'm lost in my own
No,
story.
it's okay. You got it. I know
You
where
might
you're
have to
at.
fill in
Beth
the
will
blanks.
supervise.
I know where you're at.
I can go a little off topic. So she sends me like 80 Broadway actors. And we had talked about it could be anybody. So I didn't give her much direction because the role could be, he could be young, he could be old, he could be black, he could be white, it could be a woman, it could be anybody. And I looked at this list and started going through like YouTube videos of people acting. I'm like, I can't do this. It's too many. So you got to narrow it down, which apparently no one asks that. Everyone says, send me more. I'm like, no, I want like a few. She goes, what do you want? So and I don't know what made me think of this. I said, I want somebody like Tim Blake Nelson. And she said, well, why don't we get Tim Blake Nelson? I said, we can do that? She goes, you can ask anybody.
Chris and Trey looking at each
We're
other
looking at each other like,
what?
you mean just ask him? She goes, that's my job. I can ask anybody. I actually know his people at UTA very well. I'll call them. And 1 week later, I was on FaceTime with Tim. And he had read the script and was all in. I was like, what?
Basically, should I start growing my beard? All right.
That was during that first phone call. I'm growing a big beard. Like, yes, sir. Grow a beard. He had one comment about the script, about a scene that he felt was needed. And so I furiously wrote that scene and sent it to him. And he's smart as heck. He was his class orator at Brown University studying classics. He went to Juilliard. He's smart.
But
so
he
was super
respected
helpful.
you. He respected
He did.
you.
He also really got the vibe between Trey and Chris that they were for real. So whether they spun a good story or he really could look in their souls and see that they are just fantastic humans and he was going to jump in with them.
It was also a lot of luck, too, in that we're almost exactly the same age. We both think the same things are funny. You know, there was a lot of commonality among us.
3 kids, they've got 3 boys.
There was a lot of overlap and there's a kind of trust, I think, that came with that. And he's just that kind of guy. I don't know if it had as much to do with us. And he wanted to play Don Quixote.
Yeah.
In some of our
It's
talks,
no small. You can't discount how badly an actor wants a role.
I just look back at the interviews we did on set, some EPK stuff with him, and he was talking about reading the script for the first time. And even before he got it, he said, well, they're going to probably do some alternative casting for Sancho. That's kind of interesting. And when it was Don Quixote, he was like, hoo-hoo, that's interesting. And started reading Chris's language and was like, whoa, this has got stuff in it. This is great. And it was from there just bing, bing, bing.
So once you get Tim, then you can get other things.
And then you got Jacob.
Yeah,
you got money.
We had actually cast somebody else as Sancho and thought he was on board. Uh-huh. And once we got Tim and the money started coming in, we called his agent. His agent went, yeah, he's out. Like, what? And we were close to shooting. Like it was down to the wire.
Why?
Who knows?
He has some other show.
They don't tell you. And then his agent said, I got this other guy, though, this kid. You should look at him. He's going to be in the new Spider-Man movie. But it was really, he wouldn't audition. I couldn't talk to him really.
It was a Hail Mary from the agent.
He was counting on the Spider-Man. He said, go to YouTube and watch the trailers for the new Spider-Man movie. And he's this like third banana in the Spider-Man movie, so there wasn't a lot of him in the trailer. But what there was so charming. And we were all, Trey and I were getting all like, wow, we should at least be able to audition him. He hasn't. And then we looked at each other and like, we should be smart enough to say yes to something that's really great. He's young, he's funny, he's adorable, he's not another white guy. Like there was a lot of plus. And that you look at that big shit-eating grin. It's like,
You fall in love with him.
I do. It's like, I just want to point cameras at that guy. And he's the opposite of Tim.
He's definitely the opposite of Tim.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that just, again, it's like, yes, please.
So this commitment, mutual respect, started at the top and it infiltrated to the set. What were some of the funny things that happened while you were shooting this film?
Before we go there, let's talk about the funny thing that happened with our makeup supervisor and how she got the part.
Oh, I didn't know
Talking about
that.
mutual respect.
Yes. Thank you, Jason.
Which I thought was so funny and wonderful.
I had this office at Second Line, and again, I've never done this. So they keep parading these people in for me to interview for these jobs. I kind of have no idea what I'm supposed to talk to them about. So I make up some questions and try to sort them out. And
You know that every young director is hating you right now. Like just listening to this, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I made this movie and I got people, I don't know, whatever. And they're like hating you.
yeah, because I've been writing up a list of these questions since I was 12.
To NYU,
Yeah.
and I went to film school, and I know exactly what I should be asking.
Just like, okay. So I'm trying to be, again, not being that young. I had some idea I have hired people in my life. And so Leslie came in and I told her, I don't know anything about theatrical makeup. I don't know anything about film makeup. You've read the script. Tell me 3 things that are going to be really challenging for you that I might want to reconsider, and 3 opportunities that I've missed. And she's talked about a couple things, and she said, let me read it again and come back tomorrow. I said, okay. So the next day, I can hear her walk in the reception area, and I hear people going, oh my God, Leslie, what happened? And she's like, oh, I fell down. I was on a bike and like all this stuff. And these are people that know her. And they're all like, she's getting a hug from Kim. And like Nick Reasons is like, oh my God, that looks terrible. So she walks in my office. She's got this big fat lip and a black eye and this big brush burn on her forehead. It's like, holy smoke, what happened to you? And she sat down and she went, it's makeup. I said, you're hired. Because there's a lot of, Don Quixote gets the crap beaten out of him by the end of the movie, and he's covered with blood, and he's been punched, and she was terribly convincing. And only really in the editing room did I realize what a phenomenal job she had done. There are things I didn't notice on set. Did you?
The continuity of her.
The bruise?
No.
He's wearing a cookie sheet as a chest plate through the whole movie, and he gets smashed in the cookie sheet at one point with a golf club. So this scene was happening. It was shot before then, but it's happening later in the movie. And he's shirtless. And only in the editing booth did I notice he has a rectangular bruise on his chest and his abdomen in the edge where the edges of the cookie sheet would be. Brilliant. Fantastic. And she never mentioned it to me. I didn't notice it on the day because, chaos and rain.
And meanwhile, every makeup artist is loving you right now. Thank you for applauding our art. And they do think through things that we would never have thought of. They're amazing people.
Oh, it's not. She knew parts of the script better than I did because she had to think through what happened in between scenes and what would it look like here, and like she thought through everything that could affect. And she and Tim made the decision together not to put any foundation on him, and his skin looks. Because under lights and cameras, great skin looks bad, and he has normal skin. And that decision was super brave on Tim's part, for one, and hers, because they let him look sallow and pasty and blotchy when he needed to be. And I think she even played it up in some places.
Yeah, she was great. I have to say, all of our crew was great. You had a cameraman who was our Steadicam operator who came in and saved almost all of it. He worked tirelessly, Chad Chamberlain.
Chad was so good, we got rid of the dolly grip and the dolly after about day 6.
He was unbelievable,
Wow.
and still is obviously unbelievable, and saved so many shots for us.
All the heads, everybody. Anne's costume is just, she built a costume that took on its own life. It became like a character.
Sure did. I love that reveal of that costume on that porch. God, I love that shot.
I can't wait for all of our listeners to go right on, and when it loads down on October 1st on all digital platforms, to be able to buy it and see it. Oh, was that a shameless plug?
I think that was.
Oh, whoops.
Please, thank you.
That just happened.
Well, let's get right into it then. On September 27th, there is a sneak preview or a
28th.
sneak peek. 28th, September 28th in the Big Apple in New York. Let's talk about this because we have viewers that live throughout the country, not just in Louisiana. Tell me about this event and what it means to you and the film.
Beth, why don't you take that one?
Oh my, really? The Metrograph Theater in New York City has become well known for being this beacon of wonderful films, and they curate really amazing things coming into that space. GQ magazine, I think, rates it as the best place in New York to see a film. So we have that on our side, and that adds a lot. We're going to be doing a question and answer session with Tim afterwards, so people will have the opportunity to certainly talk to Chris in that Q&A and Tim about their process, things we haven't covered here. It means a lot to get it into a big arena, to be able to allow for reviewers to cover us and to spread the word and get it seen elsewhere. You do have to make a big splash for that to happen, and we are, and that's New York. So I guess that's what it means to us.
And then October 1st, it's available for everyone to buy it and watch it and have viewing parties.
Yep, on almost every platform. So Amazon, Google Play, iTunes, several different other ones that I'm forgetting at this moment, since we have a laundry list of them. But we'll be just about everywhere.
Now you have a great cast, most of whom are from Louisiana, with the exception of your key actors. Tell us how that process was and the synergy and the relationships between these actors. I know several of them, and I've seen some of their work, and they're excellent, but they're all unique roles in this film.
Mm-hmm.
There are several layers that go into when you're dealing with an ensemble level cast. And of course, I'll let Chris speak to artistically what he was looking for. But on the producerial side and the budget side, there are some realities that you have to think about. We couldn't fly in everybody we dreamt of for these roles. So there's a limitation there, but we look at it as an opportunity. Who locally has the chops to have these wonderful roles? So going to really a trusted casting director, Ryan Glorioso, who does local casting, or did it for us, who are his favorites locally, and really bringing a spirit of, we want the right person in the role. We'll find them. We want a diverse cast, and leading some of our casting decisions with that ethic was really important for us. And yeah, we do have a very large pool here in Louisiana because the film industry is so robust. So we had a lot of options to play with.
Yep, led by Anne Mahoney, who was just
She's terrific,
stunning. She's so wonderful.
There are very
great.
few things that I pat myself on the back for, and Anne Mahoney is one of them. And I'll just lay claim to that one, because she came in and was talking to Trey about tax credits because of some projects that she was working with. And I knew her in many ways. We also share a hairdresser. I'm flipping my hair.
Looks great, by the way.
Thanks. But she's so talented, and she left the room, and I was like, Trey, she's Janelle. That's who exactly I picture as the Janelle character, the niece of Don Quixote. That's who I picture. He's like, huh, that's interesting. And putting her forth as a candidate, I was very proud of.
You know, I actually worked with Anne before.
Did you, Chris?
I did.
I knew that.
I know. One time, we cut her from the movie, apparently.
Oh.
She was like she was young, and she was this little kid. And she had this tiny, I think she had one line in this movie. And it got cut out, which I didn't remember, but, you know, she did.
She did. Of course she did. Of course she did.
I think tiny movies often suffer because you spend all your money on the big cast, and there's always one or two people that are just sticks, you know, you just don't quite have the chops to keep up, particularly if they're in a scene with a really accomplished actor. They tend to cower, and we didn't have any of that.
No.
I mean, the film industry in New Orleans, I keep telling people, it's not super deep, but at the top of it are people in every role, as actors, as technicians, as everything. There are people here that are as good as anywhere. If you can get those people, and we kind of got a lot of them. But the local cast was, and some of it, well, like two of these guys, the guy that plays Ferdy and the guy that plays Carl the Screaming Poet, turns out are best friends. And they had both auditioned for the same role. And we couldn't find anybody for the other role. And we kept auditioning people. And we finally went back to the earlier auditions for the poet. And it's like, well, what about that guy? He's not right for the poet, but man, he'd be a great Ferdy. So we brought him back in for Ferdy. And neither of them told us that they work at the same bar and had been like, I got a call back. I didn't get a call back for that, because they'd been discussing it. And then they both ended up getting the role they were competing for, and they both ended up being cast, and it worked out beautifully.
Yeah.
largely because of Brandon's hair. I mean, come on.
Oh yeah, he's got good
It should
hair.
have its own agent.
I wish I had Brendan's hair.
Now,
And so does Trey.
Yeah, totally.
now behind the scene, you had a very diverse crew, almost equally women versus men. And I think the fact that we're a little bit more experienced filmmakers, we're not in our early 20s, gives us great advantages, especially producing, directing. You are all family, family members, your moms, your dads, and you have families, which has ultimately made you better filmmakers and the experiences. But did you deliberately plan to have a diverse crew and split it up between men and women?
Yes.
And why is that, Beth?
It's important. You want the right people in the job, and there are absolutely capable men for every job and absolutely capable women for a woman for every job. And for us, we are a family. We became a family, as most people will say that they're on a film set and you're working in such hard conditions. There is a family-like spirit, and that involves diversity.
But sometimes it's a very dysfunctional and broken family. This didn't happen to be one of those.
Thankfully, it wasn't. So yes, it was a choice.
Yep.
And very much a choice with the actors. There was a big board in the office, and how it looked, how it represented South Louisiana in race, in gender, in everything was terribly important. And a lot of the calculus of who we cast and who we cast in what roles was trying to be really, really vigilant about what signals we were sending about who people are. And, it's funny, the one thing I didn't think of, because I just don't think of it, I guess, is weight. But I've heard more gratitude from heavy people about casting heavy people in the movie and not making fun of them.
Anne would say that, and she did talk on that at several different points in interviews, that she was so thankful that she, as a larger woman, is represented in this film doing active things. She's on a treadmill, she's running up a levee, and we're not questioning her ability to do it. We're not poking fun at her for doing it. And it's just a part of the narrative. And she's been very appreciative about
which
that.
is something I in part of my privilege, have never really had to think about. But we shot a scene where she was eating a meal alone. It didn't end up in the movie.
No, it didn't make it.
But we sent someone to Whole Foods to get some food for her to eat for the set. And she looked at that meal and looked up at me and went, "Thank you." So what are you talking about? She went, "It's not fat food. This is chicken and vegetables. Everyone puts ice cream in front of me and donuts." And she's not that big. She's a pretty normal-sized gal, but in filmmaking standards, she's not emaciated. So she goes, "Everybody casts me and makes a fat girl sitting on the sofa eating ice cream joke. Everybody." And
I love the fact that you
thought
didn't
about
do
it.
that.
Not at all.
I know there were so many great experiences. Think of one special moment that you'll never forget during this journey, which is continuing. Beth, let's start with you.
I got it. The first one I think of was actually at the wrap evening. Tim gave a speech about what this project meant to him and how special it was. And I'm not going to get the language right, sorry, Tim, but it was, his thought was, this might have been the best filmmaking experience that I've ever been in, or close to. Like it hit us all to the core. And I promise you, in the last weeks, as we're building up to our sneak peek and getting yeses and nos from booking this film across the country, if I don't want to go to work, I do go back to our Dropbox file and I watch that. Because it means so much to him and to all of us that this got made. The world has to see it. So it enlivens my efforts and it gets me charged up. And I'm getting choked up even talking about it, and I don't mean to, but it was that important to him. It's been that important to us. And it's really important for the world to see this charming, glorious, splendid movie.
Absolutely.
And I've never seen anybody work harder on anything and be more gracious. And the performance is
Spectacular.
incredible.
If we had more resources, that would be an Academy Award winning level performance.
Yes, his performance is
And I don't say that lightly. He's tremendous.
No, I remember walking away from the film and the Q&A, but in particular watching the film. I felt good. I felt fulfilled. And the words that you used to describe the film was exactly those that I would. And I just add delightful because I use that word. It was just everybody around me. We felt good about it. Jason, what was one of those incredible moments?
Hers was on the back end of production. Mine was on the front end because I had done so much work to prepare to get day one started that when we finally rolled cameras, I could see the smile on all their faces. I saw Trey and Chris over by the camera and kind of doing one of those little elbow things that were kind of like, look what we're actually doing. And I turn around and look at Beth, who's sitting in the producer's chair, and she just got this big glowing smile on her face. And it was a beautiful day that day. I felt like, somebody was just shining this beautiful sunlight on all of us to say, hey, you're about to go on this crazy quixotic journey that we all ended up doing, but it's going to be a hell of a blast. And we're all here saying that we're all good friends still after it. So I'm sure
it started appropriately with a shaman ceremony.
That's
totally
right.
I walked on the set, I was like, what is this?
Now, we haven't mentioned one of our other producers, our line producer, Tracy Keller.
Thank you.
Is a formidable force to this whole project. And she had a connection to a legitimate shaman who burned sage and did a ceremony in this house that we started off our production in. And it brought out spirits. It was a hard week in that house.
Yeah.
People kept telling me this house might be small for this. I was like, no, it's a house, and we put a camera. And like the third day in that little sweat box, like, I'm just going to push this wall down myself. It was tight.
It may have been twice as big as the room we're in right now. It might have been.
It was small.
Very snug.
It was small.
Movie magic. What was one of, if not your favorite moment? From the beginning to the end. So far.
The very end, the very last hour of shooting. Because it was crazy.
Yeah.
We were chasing the sun. It was going down. They're just opening this camera up. I mean, the aperture must have been 3 feet across at this point, trying to suck light in. And I kept saying, it's too dark. And she says, no, I got it. So, and because we had to shoot backward, because it's the only scene Tim doesn't have a beard, because it's before he grows the beard. So we'd shot everything, then shaved the beard, and then shot the end. And then we had one more scene to shoot, and it was dark. And so they turned on all these lights, and the last scene we shot was for this phone insert, and it is the most ludicrous possible thing that could be shot. It is a pantomime horse and a hairy man in a dress with a sword, and it's complete madness. And it was outside in a field in St. Bernard. Cicadas are going crazy.
I'm in the front of the horse. Trey's the ass of the horse.
Yes, they have film credits, actually, as horse head and horse ass. And these PAs have taken on this guy at the last minute, Aaron, God love him. He's a really hairy young man, and he put on a dress because we didn't have anybody to be the girl, and swung a sword at a pantomime horse and made out with the horse. And my wife, who had been wisely avoiding coming to set very much, was with me. And it dawned on me that I made a movie. and at the last minute, because you're too focused on doing it to understand it and appreciate it. And I knew when I said cut in this one, we made a movie, and we shot every scene, which seemed impossible really until that moment that we'd get it. And there was cut, and we made the movie. And I looked at my wife and thought, I genuinely suspect I might wake up. I've never felt that like weirdly disconnected. Like, I don't think this is real. And then it was. And then we went and had a party.
We did.
And how was that moment when you brought your film to New Orleans on that opening night, your premiere, with your friends and family? And what about the little event before the screening? That was pretty amazing.
We had a little investor toast at a local wine store, and then we got the scooter and bless Tim's heart and Jacob's heart. to roll down the streets of New Orleans.
The cobblestone streets
The
of New
cobblestone
Orleans.
streets to ride up in rosacea as we entered the film festival.
With a tuba player.
With a tuba player. Was supposed to have been a full brass band doing a second line, and all of those kids flaked. So we had a tuba player who was just there. He was a replacement. He wasn't even the normal tuba player, so didn't know what the heck was going on
In case
with him.
it wasn't absurd enough.
And the absurdity continued when a street performer in bronze paint, full body, top to bottom bronze paint, just happened to be Don Quixote on a soapbox down in the court. He comes walking up. Like,
Oh, yeah. I thought you guys had done that.
No.
I was like, hey, they got a Don Quixote. It's like, never seen him in my life.
He was just a New Orleanian. And then we rolled rosacea in to start the party and the screening.
And so the film begins, and what's going through your minds other than you made a movie?
I hope
Where's
they-
the sword? Where's the sword?
sword?
Where's the
Where's the
sword?
sword?
Who's
Where's
got
the
the sword?
sword?
Because we were going to present a sword to Tim,
Right.
the sword. Chris was going to present it at the Q&A. And I gave the sword over to a stage manager, and I didn't know where it was.
Because I'd
And-
been promising it to him for like a year.
Yeah. So this was the sword, and it wasn't where it was supposed to be. And I'm freaking out. That's all I could think about was, okay, got the sword. Okay, I've got the sword.
I just was thinking, I hope they all laugh, because I just wanted the reaction from the audience. And so that first laugh when they all erupted, I was like, oh,
Okay,
and I could relax for a second. And then they all loved it.
It's kind of terrifying.
It is.
You get this idea where it'll be like all joyous and stuff, but nobody unconnected from the film had ever seen it, really.
And
And
he's been
there's-
in a dark room for months upon months upon months, and would come out and show us. We've probably seen it 300 different ways or 300 different times. And so we're so connected to it, we're not sure what the audience is going to think. We've seen it so much. And so that was what my biggest my nervous reaction was how are they going to react?
What version is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you won the Audience Choice Award. Congratulations. That was a big coup. And so the audience laughed, and then it goes black and it's over. What were you feeling? Take yourselves back to that moment.
I need a nap.
Beth was still looking for the sword
Yeah, I'm like-
because they hadn't given the to Tim yet. Me, I don't know what I was doing. Gosh.
I was just relieved. It's a grueling process. Like there's the years of writing it, and then there's the prep, which is intense, and then there's 21 days of warfare, basically, when all sorts of crap goes wrong, and you've got to fix it. And so you know about all that, and then you get locked in a room with an editor for a year, and it all goes wrong. I think it was Martin Scorsese said, if you don't want to throw up watching your rough assembly, you're not paying attention, or something like that, because it was. Rough assembly was.
Oh, we didn't get this shot and
Oh
wish we
my
would have had
God.
that angle.
It
And
was
the
like,
lighting was
we're
there. We thought that
done.
was great. And that now we can't use that.
So the exhausting process of going through all the dailies and finding the takes and making adjustments. And I had so much to learn on the fly about what I could do with music and narration and editing. And 3 frames here makes such a difference about whether the eyes dart over there or not at the end of the shot. Like so much of this, there was so much to learn and go through all of that. A couple of reshoots, which by the end were like an SLR and 1 light bulb. Like we were in a warehouse with a bunch of books. Like I need some inserts of these books, and we had our cinematographer in there, literally with a lamp he was holding in one hand and Jason's camera, and he made beautiful images out of it.
Unbelievable.
Gorgeous. But you get to that point where
Yeah.
you've fired all the bullets and you're throwing the gun. You're just like done. And so by the time you watch it, it's so far from when it
Surreal.
started. Yeah, it was. Yeah,
One
it
of the
was
things
it was a
about-
long stretch. It was like just kind of relief.
about making movies, not to interrupt you, sorry, Chris, but that you're with the project for so long. It's not television. It's not a short. It's a full feature that it's been 4 years. I mean, for Chris now, it's probably 6 from the time you started writing or adapting.
Oh, at least.
So
Probably 8.
Maybe 8. So we've been with this for a long, long time. And so there are those ups and down moments. And then you're just relieved that we're at that phase. We got it shown. Okay, now what's the next phase of this journey? Let's get it repped. Let's get it sold. Let's get it out there. And I don't know at what point we're going to just put our hands up and say, okay, we're done.
No, there won't be.
Maybe when we get our investors' money back,
It's like a child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, you never quit parenting even when they're 40." It's never going to entirely go away.
I don't think we will, especially with this story. This story has been alive since the early 1600s, and I think that we've told it in such a way that is as close to the book as we possibly can. At least our version is as close as it can be to any other version that's out there, considering there's only one that's a time travel.
And dare we say this is timeless, Jason?
This is timeless.
Aye.
And
It's
so,
also timeless for us because we still own it. Because if you have a traditional distribution deal, they write you a check and you go home and you're done, and they do all the work. But these guys are still.
You're still eating,
It's-
breathing,
it's
almost like,
living
Yeah.
the true
thankfully,
Don
you
Quixote.
started this whole podcast with, how did we come together and how are we still friends and family? We are now friends and family for the eternity of this film, which I feel like is going to be a lifetime. So just get used to
We're
us.
co-parenting.
We're now,
Yeah.
we're parents now here moving forward. You're just going to have to accept that.
Well, having your sneak peek in New York City is extremely exciting. And on October 1st, now everyone has to tune into our social media outlets and, of course, Beth's, The Ranch, on the Neutral Ground show, because we want everybody to enjoy the ecstasy of this film.
Or
and
just
the
want them to
joy.
buy it, Victoria. Let's be
Okay,
real clear.
okay.
We just want
We want you to buy. I didn't want to say that.
I will
We owe
say
some
it.
important people a lot of money.
Yeah.
So it needs to just like $4.99, $4.99, $4.99, $4.99.
And $4.99, not
not
much.
much.
Is that the price?
I
Is that
believe
right?
one of the
$4.99?
platforms is a $4.99er.
Yeah, because if you think
Doable.
about, you go and have a cup of coffee, and if it's an iced latte and a medium, it's over $5. So
There you go. That's a great
yeah.
point, Victoria.
Thank you.
I
Thank
think we
you.
just found out what Victoria drinks for coffee. That was her coffee order.
Ice latte.
Yeah, if you checked my Instagram, I mentioned that it was a coffee afternoon, like at 5:00 when I was still working yesterday. I need some coffee, and it was iced latte.
But yeah, she's right. We obviously want to sell as many as we possibly can. But at the end of the day, we'd love for people to see our artwork, what we've done, the passion we put into it, and having, a bit of appreciation by seeing an audience purchase, hopefully multiple copies of that will prove that to us that we made something worthwhile.
And it is very personal. Like the story is very personal. And I am desperate for all the people who worked that hard and poured that much into this thing for them to get seen and for them to be recognized for what they did. I feel like I was given a lot. And it's very important to try to get that back out there and get all these people recognized.
This doesn't mean to sound salesy, really, it will appeal to all ages, because I feel like younger folks these days are having issues with depression around social media and the influences of the digital world on their lives. People who are in their middle ages or what they're doing with their career are maybe finding themselves disenfranchised. The work is no longer there for them. And people will draw a real personal connection from Don Quixote's experience through this film, because it does resonate with all ages. And you can take all ages to it. We kept it nice and clean so you can bring your family to
Right.
it.
And my 4 and 7-year-olds have watched probably 5 different versions of it and have loved
You
it.
did that to your children?
Absolutely. They loved
Oh,
them some
yeah.
Don Quixote.
Jason, during every podcast, always asks our guests, so talk to the budding filmmaker out there. He always says young. It's me too, because I'm a filmmaker that started a little older. But what advice would you give, all three of you, to that filmmaker that's listening? I mean, heck, I didn't know what I didn't know, and ignorance can be bliss, but we knew about business. What can that filmmaker learn from each of you?
Take it away, Chris Poche.
Yeah, take it away, Chris Poche.
You have to make something. No one in the film industry cares what you can do or what you once did. They only want to know what you're doing. And this terrifying truth is that there are a lot of really talented people. And if you're one of them, you just have to kind of outwork all the others. I don't think she made this up, but I heard this on an interview with Mindy Kaling, actually. She said her mantra was, know your shit, grow your shit, show your shit. And it's the show your shit part that's hard. Like, you have to learn, you have to know what you're doing, but then you have to be willing to just put it in everybody's face and throw it out there, because that's the only way you do it, is by you get attention by what you've made. Even if it's on your phone, It doesn't matter. You just have to go, just make something.
Do it.
It's a good one. Good
Beth?
quote.
My advice would absolutely be get yourself on set. Work on set in any department that will take you and every department that will take you. You need to know from the ground up, and that's not just about being a physical producer. It's about just understanding as a director what those people do for you, what they do within the ranks of those different departments. And there is a hierarchy that you need to work through. And put your ego aside about that. My first job on a film set was as a stand-in, and it was Cate Blanchett's stand-in. It was like a master class in watching acting technique. You have opportunities to learn every single day you go, but you just have to humble yourself and just work and get on set. And that was actually the set that I met Jason on.
Oh.
Way
Curious
back a long
case
time
of
ago.
Benjamin Button. Oh, that Brad Pitt.
Oh, Brad Pitt. Let's not go
So
there.
were you Brad
Jason,
Pitt stand-in?
Yes, he was.
I was when I had hair.
wait, you were Brad.
It's uncanny.
No, I was
he
not.
wasn't.
Absolutely not.
But by the way, the Brad Pitt stand-in on that movie plays opposite him in the Quentin Tarantino film.
Really?
James Abair was his stand-in on Benjamin Button, 10 years ago?
Yeah.
And now he's in the Quentin Tarantino movie getting his butt kicked by Brad Pitt as a hippie guy who's got to fix the tire.
Oh, yeah.
That was his stand-in on Benjamin Button, and now they play opposite each
that
other.
is a great
To my
little-
point, get on set, learn
Yeah.
set, and if you know and understand this business, you will have opportunity.
And mine, I say this in almost all our podcasts, but it's network. And the reason I say that is for the people I have here and the people that we hired. And that is, one, respect every single person that you meet for what they are, who they are, and what they can deliver to you. And you'll eventually find out that, you'll meet somebody on a set, like Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and eventually you'll partner with them and produce a project with them, which, she was married to Trey, and Trey has another studio like I have, and we became friends on this fun little journey. He introduced me to Chris Poche, who I think is a wonderful human being and has brought this beautiful project to us. Just network as much as you can and talk with people, find out what their skill sets are, and try to make projects together. This is not a project this is not a thing that we can do solo. I mean, yes, we can set up a camera and talk to a camera and be a floating head, but making movies, making television is a group and a team effort. And obviously finding the right people that you connect with is going to end up eventually, hopefully making you successful in this industry. Hopefully it makes us successful in this industry.
Do
Sound
you
advice.
have any final thoughts?
I love these guys. They're wonderful in what they do, and it's been a true joy working on this with them, and I can't wait for the next thing that comes out of us, whatever that may be.
Can I work with you guys too?
Yeah, you heard me say it, Jason. What are we doing? What are we going to give birth to next?
Comes out of us, give birth to us. The one thing I want to say that I learned so much about my marriage working with Trey and Beth. I just really appreciated
Settle down.
each and every moment with them. No, I do. I love you guys too. So I do. Yeah.
And I'll say it again. I'm always available too. I just work Monday through Friday here and Saturday and Sunday.
Look at her sniffing around for
I
another
know.
gig.
I don't think she
heck
likes
yeah,
her boss.
Networking,
What's a job?
networking. Chris, final thoughts?
$4.99.
It's a good thought.
No, I do love all these guys, and everybody that played a part in this movie has a big place in my heart, because it was not for the faint of heart. It was not easy. It was not financially rewarding. There was a whole lot of things that it wasn't. But man, it was fun. And I've learned more about storytelling doing this than anything I did in the 15 years before that, for which I'm extremely grateful.
Well, my takeaway is do what you love and love what you do, and surround yourselves with a great team who you respect and you enjoy being with, because it's a whole lot easier to work with people you like and you gel with than people that you don't. And of course, if someone isn't gelling, you cut them loose. You have to do that because you want this simpatico. And you guys got it going.
Appreciate it.
So I am very excited to have hosted this unusual and very special podcast. And
That sounded like an after-school
On a
special
very
recap.
special.
I used to do public television. What can I say? The pledge drives and the thank you gifts, $4.99. Really, I'm truly humbled and thrilled to be sharing this desk with you all. And New York, for all of you New Yorkers out there, September 28th, go to their website for information. Are you going to be having actual DVDs?
Yes, we actually will have DVDs made. You can go to TrueDonQuixote.com for all the information of where to download, where to see us, which theaters will be in. Chalmette Theater, October 4th through the 11th, buying DVDs, and yeah, all the fun things will be, all the information will be on that website.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a joy. I hope you, our audience, has enjoyed it as much as we all have. And Trey, we love you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of On the Neutral Ground.
It's been a great show. Now be sure to stay connected with us on social media at On the NG Show. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
And special thanks to our audio engineer, Tijan Dabaziz, and videographer and editor, Andre LaFleur.
Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.